The Serpent's Riddle. In the shadow of the great Mayan temples, on an island known as Itzamna, there existed a small village where life flowed with the predictable rhythm of the seasons. The village sat nestled between ancient stone structures and lush jungle, its humble dwellings a stark contrast to the magnificent ruins that surrounded them. Unknown to most who lived there, the island held secrets beneath its soil, treasures hidden by ancestors long gone. Samuel Smith was the village's most respected historian, a man of 45 years whose silver-streaked hair and weathered face told of decades spent under the tropical sun. The villagers appreciated his transparent nature. When Samuel spoke, everyone knew he concealed nothing. His straightforward manner had earned him trust throughout Itzamna. Charlotte Johnson had arrived 3 springs ago, a researcher from distant lands who had chosen to make the village her home. At 33, she possessed a quiet intensity that complemented her observant nature. Nothing escaped Charlotte's notice, not the subtle changes in bird migrations, not the shifting patterns of the stars, and certainly not the strange behavior that had recently overcome their village leader. It was during this particular spring, before what the elders called the Great Flood season, that their lives would intertwine in ways neither could have imagined. The disappearance. "Something isn't right," Charlotte said, her eyes fixed on the empty hut that belonged to Mateo, a 12-year-old boy who had vanished 3 days prior. "This is the 3rd child this month." Samuel nodded grimly. "The village council believes they've simply wandered into the jungle. Children are curious by nature." 3 children, Samuel. All disappeared without taking any provisions, without telling their families. That's not curiosity, that's something else entirely. Samuel couldn't argue with her logic. Charlotte's perceptiveness had proven valuable many times before. "What do you suggest?" "The temple ruins. I've been observing strange lights there at night, and there's something else." She hesitated. "I found this near Mateo's home." Charlotte produced a small stone tablet with intricate carvings, a serpent coiled around what appeared to be a human figure. Samuel's expression darkened. "This is from the forbidden texts, the Serpent's covenant. It shouldn't be here." "What does it mean?" "It means someone is meddling with knowledge that was buried for a reason." That evening, as the village gathered to discuss the missing children, a stranger arrived. He introduced himself as Dr. Elias Vega, an archaeologist studying Mayan artifacts. His refined speech and immaculate appearance seemed out of place in their humble surroundings. "I've heard of your missing children," Dr. Vega said, his voice carrying an unsettling smoothness. "Perhaps I can be of assistance. My expertise in local mythology might provide insights your village elders lack." Samuel felt an immediate distrust toward the man, though he couldn't explain why. Charlotte, standing nearby, caught his eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. She felt it too. The riddle appears. The next morning, Samuel awoke to find a stone tablet placed outside his door. Carved into its surface was a riddle in ancient Mayan script. "Where serpent meets sky, where stone touches cloud, where ancestors whisper to those who speak aloud. 3 Ks hidden where darkness meets light will open the door to endless night." Samuel immediately sought out Charlotte, finding her already awake and studying similar markings found near the village well. "It's a challenge," she said without looking up. "Someone wants us to solve this." "Or wants to lead us into danger," Samuel countered. These riddles speak of the Temple of Night, a place our ancestors sealed off centuries ago. Charlotte finally met his gaze. The children might be there, Samuel. We have to try. We'll need help, he admitted reluctantly. I know someone, Charlotte said. They contacted me months ago when I first noticed strange occurrences here. They call themselves the Guardians of the Codex, a secret organization dedicated to protecting ancient knowledge from those who would misuse it. Samuel raised an eyebrow. And you're only mentioning this now. I wasn't sure who to trust, she replied simply. But now I'm certain Dr. Vega is not who he claims to be. The Guardians have been tracking him for years. He's known in certain circles as the Collector, a man obsessed with harnessing the power of ancient artifacts, regardless of the cost. The hidden truth. That night they met with Lucia, Charlotte's contact from the Guardians. The woman's face was partially concealed by a hood, but her eyes reflected determination. Elias Vega is more dangerous than you realize, Lucia explained in hushed tones. He believes the children are the key to unlocking an ancient power. According to the texts, the ritual requires the innocent dreams of the young to open the doorway. Doorway to what? Samuel asked. To knowledge that was forbidden even to the high priests. The texts speak of visions, glimpses of potential futures, of power beyond imagining. Charlotte leaned forward, and the children. Lucia's silence was answer enough. We have 3 days before the spring equinox, she finally said. That's when Vega will attempt the ritual. The riddle you received is part of an ancient test, one that leads to 3 artifacts that can either open the temple door or seal it forever. Then we solve the riddle first, Samuel said firmly. We find the artifacts before he does. The first part of the riddle led them to the highest temple on the island, where Serpent meets Sky. After hours of searching, Charlotte discovered a hidden chamber beneath the serpent carving at the temple's peak. Inside lay a jade key, its handle carved into the shape of a jaguar. The second key was found where stone touches cloud, in a cave halfway up the mountain that was perpetually shrouded in mist. This key was made of obsidian, dark as night with a handle shaped like an eagle. But the third location, where darkness meets light, proved more challenging. For 2 days they searched, growing increasingly desperate as the equinox approached. We're missing something, Charlotte said, frustration evident in her voice as they sat in Samuel's hut, ancient maps spread before them. The first 2 locations were physical places, but this one feels different. Samuel stared at the maps, his mind racing. What if it's not a place, but a time, the moment between night and day dawn? Charlotte's eyes widened. The Eastern Shrine, it was built specifically to capture the first light of the equinox. The confrontation. Dawn of the equinox found them at the Eastern Shrine, where they discovered the third key made of gold and shaped like a human heart. Hidden in a chamber that only opened when the first rays of sunlight touched a specific stone. Now we find the temple entrance, Samuel said, the 3 keys secure in his pouch. But as they turned to leave, Dr. Vega stepped from the shadows, flanked by 2 men with machetes. I must thank you for solving the puzzle, he said smoothly. I've been watching your progress with great interest. Where are the children? Charlotte demanded. Safe for now, they're already at the temple preparing for their important role. His smile never reached his eyes. Now the keys, if you please. You don't understand what you're doing, Samuel said. The knowledge was forbidden for a reason. Progress requires sacrifice, Mr. Smith. Surely a historian like yourself appreciates that. Now, the keys. What happened next occurred so quickly that Samuel barely had time to react. A flash of movement from the jungle, and suddenly Lucia and several guardians emerged, engaging Vega's men. In the chaos, Charlotte grabbed Samuel's arm and pulled him toward a hidden path. We need to reach the temple. Lucia will handle Vega. They ran through the jungle, following Charlotte's lead, until they reached a structure Samuel had never seen before, a temple smaller than the others, almost completely reclaimed by vegetation. At its base, a stone door stood partially open. Inside, they found the 3 missing children, along with 4 others from neighboring villages, all in a trance-like state, arranged in a circle around a central altar. We need to wake them, Charlotte said, rushing to the nearest child. That won't work, came Vega's voice from behind them. He stood in the doorway, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. They've been given a special preparation. Only the completion of the ritual will release them. Or your death, Samuel suggested grimly. Vega laughed. Always so direct, Mr. Smith, but there's something you should know. He stepped closer, his eyes fixed on Samuel. Have you never wondered why you feel such a connection to this place? Why the ancient texts seem to speak to you so clearly? Samuel felt a chill run through him. We share the same blood, cousin, Vega said softly. Your mother never told you about her family, did she? About the legacy that runs through our veins. You're lying, Samuel said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. The Keeper bloodline has guarded these secrets for generations. Half of our family chose to protect the knowledge, half sought to use it. Your mother chose to run from it entirely. Vega held out his hand. Join me, Samuel. This is your birthright too. For a moment, Samuel felt a pull, a curiosity about the knowledge that might be revealed, about the family history he'd never known. The temptation of forbidden knowledge hung before him like a ripe fruit. Charlotte's voice broke through his thoughts. Samuel, the children. Reality crashed back. Whatever truth might exist in Vega's words, the cost was too high. No, Samuel said firmly. Whatever power lies here, it's not worth the price of these children's lives. Vega's face hardened. Then you'll die with them. He lunged forward, reaching for the pouch containing the keys. In the struggle that followed, Samuel found himself fighting not just for his life, but for everything he believed in. The responsibility that came with knowledge, with power, was to protect, not to exploit. The temple began to shake as their battle disturbed ancient mechanisms. Dust and stone fell from the ceiling. Charlotte worked frantically to move the children to safety, while Samuel and Vega fought for control of the keys. In a final desperate move, Samuel managed to insert the 3 keys into the central altar, not in the configuration to open the forbidden chamber, but in the pattern Lucia had shown him to seal it forever. No, Vega screamed as the temple began to collapse inward. You don't understand what you're destroying. I understand exactly what I'm saving, Samuel replied, pulling the last child toward the exit as Charlotte led the way. They escaped just as the temple collapsed entirely, sealing whatever secrets it held for eternity. Vega, unwilling to abandon his obsession, was lost in the destruction. The awakening. The children awoke from their trance with no memory of what had happened. As they were reunited with their families, Samuel watched from a distance, his mind still processing Vega's revelations about his heritage. Charlotte joined him, her observant eyes noting his troubled expression. "Do you think he was telling the truth about your family?" "I don't know," Samuel admitted. "Part of me wants to discover if there's more to my history than I've known. Another part is afraid of what you might find," she finished for him. He nodded. "The line between seeking knowledge and being consumed by it seems thinner than I once believed. That's why we need people like you, Samuel, people who understand that line." She placed her hand on his. "The village council has asked me to help document what happened here, to record the truth so that future generations understand the danger. And the class divide that still exists between knowledge keepers and those kept in ignorance," Samuel added. "That needs to change. Everyone deserves to understand their history, but with the responsibility that comes with it." In the days that followed, Samuel and Charlotte worked together to create a new archive of knowledge, one that would be accessible to all villagers, not just a select few. The Guardians, impressed by their actions, offered support and additional historical texts that had been protected for generations. As for the treasures that had been hidden on the island, they remained where they belonged, not gold or jewels, as some might have imagined, but knowledge preserved in texts and artifacts that told the story of a civilization's wisdom and mistakes. The greatest treasure, Samuel realized, was not the power that Vega had sought, but the hope that came from people finding their voice and choosing a better path than those before them. That night, as Samuel finished telling this story to his young niece who had come to visit from the mainland, she asked sleepily, "But can people truly change, Uncle Samuel? If Vega had survived, would he have learned his lesson?" Samuel smiled gently. "That's the question we all must answer for ourselves, little one. The capacity for change exists in everyone, but the choice to embrace it belongs to each individual." He tucked the blanket around her and whispered, "Dream of better choices and brighter tomorrows. Good night."